Welcome to the Living Well Church podcast, and thanks for tuning in today. Our mission as a church is to help people find faith in Jesus and a life of purpose and hope. You're about to watch a message that will challenge you, inspire you, encourage you, and most of all, point you to Jesus and the life of purpose and hope He has planned for you. So lean in and enjoy, and let God speak into your life.
I'm really excited to be sharing this morning. I'm not sure why, I'll be really honest with you, but I just have this serious sense of excitement this morning. The Lord, His Spirit is definitely here, and I'm excited about what the Lord wants to do through that. And so, those of you that don't know me, I'm Beth. Hello, it's nice to see you here this morning, and thank you for, if it's your first morning, for just joining us to celebrate Jane and Noel this morning, and to be with us as we glorify the Lord. We've been looking at a series, and the series that we've been looking at is what excites us about Jesus. And I'm looking at what excites me about Jesus, and that is His authority and His power. And to start off that, I'm just going to look at Jesus' position. Okay, so right from the beginning, in 1 John 1, it says this. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. In Him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. And that light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So in 1 John there, it's talking about the Word, but the Word is Jesus. Jesus is with God, and it says really clearly right from the beginning, even when this world was made, Jesus was with God. He was sitting, we find out in the Bible, on the right-hand side of God in heaven. And I just want us to grasp right at the beginning of this preach that Jesus was in heaven with God. There is no better place. We hear in the end in Revelation that in heaven is a place where there is no tears, no shame, there's no bitterness, there's no regret, there's no hurt. If we can 1 minute grasp what a beautiful and amazing, joyful, peaceful place that is, it's a phenomenal place. Plus He's with God. You know, the one we adore, as we've just been singing. He's with Him all the time, and He's there in heaven. Then in 1 John it says this, in verse 14, "The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. So we have seen His glory, the glory of the one and the only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." So Jesus in heaven, the absolute best place we can possibly fathom. And then He comes and descends to earth. I don't know if you've ever been on holiday and you're basking in the heat of some tropical Mediterranean country, or somewhere across the other side of the world. You're with your family. The pressures of this earth and of your work, etc., have all gone. Maybe the kids are even playing nicely. And you're on a holiday, and then you have that feeling of, oh, we're going home tomorrow. Yeah? And that feeling of, oh, we've got to go back to the drizzly UK. That transition is bad enough, isn't it? From a lovely hot country back to England. Where I work in the other side of this building for Kingdom Preschool. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you now. Please don't judge me by this story. But anyone who works in this building knows those toilets are freezing. Absolutely ice cold. And the seats, first thing in the morning, is like entering an Arctic country. Now, when I'm in my office and I've managed to ramp up our little office heaters to get it to Mediterranean temperatures, as I like to work in, and I'm sat there and nature calls, the thought of having to get off my comfy office chair and descend into the absolute freezing abyss of a toilet fills me with dread. I cannot, therefore, even begin to fathom that Jesus, in the heavenly realm, in this unbelievable, only perfect place that we have ever known, sat next to His Father, when he looked to the earth, he had to descend off that white, beautiful throne. And in Daniel, the chapter in the Bible, it describes him as being all white with like this bronzing fire around him. This picture of absolute power, of beauty and holiness. And he had to get down and descend into earth, into a cold, dark, rank stable, into a manger in the Middle East. And he went from this all-seeing, all-knowing, absolute powerful God to a helpless, dependent, powerless baby. That transition gets me. But you know what excites me? Because we have this unbelievable, powerful Lord surging with authority, and yet he decided to diminish himself to a helpless baby in a dark manger for us. Because he wanted to walk, as it said in John, and dwell among us so that we would see his glory, so that we could start to recognize his authority, and so that we could even share within it. And so that baby grew up, and he grew up and he started to show the authority of the Father in heaven. And in Matthew, we get this beautiful account of Jesus revealing his power again and again and again. And so even as a baby, the king of the time, Herod, wanted to kill him but couldn't even touch him. Then just before he began his ministry in a desert, the devil tried to tempt him but got absolutely nowhere. Then we hear about Jesus, how through the Lord's power he heals leprosy, how he heals the paralyzed, how he casts out demons, how in Matthew 8 there's a storm and he calms even the wind and the waves. And the people with him at the time say, "Who is this man that even the wind and the waves obey him?" He raises people from the dead. He feeds 5,000 with a few loaves and a couple of fishes. And a centurion in Matthew 8 comes to see him and says, "Somebody at home, in my home, is sick. Please, can you heal them?" And Jesus knows that he doesn't even have to go to the home, and he says he'll be healed. This is the power of Jesus Christ. He takes that power from heaven, that perfect place. He humbles himself and becomes this baby to release these glimmers of power on earth. He is so authoritative. And do you know what? Nothing could stop him. Nothing could thwart those plans. And in Matthew 10, it talks about his authority and the consequences of it for his disciples. And it should come up on the screen, Matthew 10. It is a huge, chunky chapter, and I am going to read it. So please bear with me. But in Matthew 10, it says this: Jesus called his 12 disciples to him, and he gave them the authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and illness. Then it talks through the 12 disciples, and then in verse 5 we get back to these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instruction: "Do not go amongst the Gentiles or enter the town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. And as you go, proclaim this message: the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal those that are ill, raise the dead, cleanse those that have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts, no bag for the journey or extra shirt or sandals or staff, for the worker is worth his keep. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils, and you will be flogged in synagogues. On my account you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time you will be given what to say, for it will be not you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me. But the one who stands firm in the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I will tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of the household? So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will be disclosed, or hidden that will be made known. When I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but who cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid, for you are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their own cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And I'm going to stop there. These verses are soaked with power and authority. But at the same time, for me, these verses are hugely problematic. The Lord God that I know sends this person into the earth, sends the word, sends the hope, and yet it says there that he's not come to bring peace. I'm like, what? He says there that he's going to turn brother against brother, that he's going to turn daughter against her mother-in-law. And I just don't get it. That's not the Jesus I know, the Jesus that I read about. But we need to understand what power and authority Jesus stands in and what he's given us to do. For Jesus is merely saying in here the consequences of his power being revealed on earth. We need to remember the beginning of this passage when he says Jesus calls his 12 disciples and he gives them authority. And so the authority that he has in heaven is the authority that he gives them on earth to drive out demons and to heal the sick. And as huge consequence to that, unfortunately, there are going to be factions. There are going to be people that don't like that. There are going to be people that doubt that. There are people that are going to be coming up against it. And Jesus is very much truthfully telling them the reality of following the Lord and the cost of following him and the cost of having his authority. For with his authority will bring the fact that other people want to come up against it and be more powerful. And therefore, they will be more than willing to persecute, more than willing to put down, and more than willing to shut down. And we see that in the life of Jesus himself. That the people at the time, the religious leaders of the time, the rulers, the Romans, really didn't like Jesus' authority, really hated Jesus' power. So much so that they made one of his disciples turn against him, betray him, so that they could capture him and hang him on a cross. But Jesus is so powerful, he's so authoritative, that not even death could hold him. And he raised himself from that cross to show that not even death could hold him. And we go back to those verses in 1 John, which says that darkness will try to overcome him, but not even darkness can overcome the light. And we need to know that as Jesus gives his disciples this authority to heal the sick and to cast out demons, that yes, persecution will come against them. It might well be that peace isn't the outcome of what happens as they start to move in Jesus' name, but actually the sword comes up against them. It might not be that people live in harmony after they start to heal people or cast out demons, but actually people start to argue about what authority they're moving in. And yet, the truth is that they are still moving in God's power, and they are still moving in God's Spirit, and they're still doing the work of the Lord, and actually the darkness will not overcome them. And so we need to know, even at the end of these verses, it says these words: "Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. But whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." And you know, my mum read this morning that bit of the passage from the book which said, I loved that line, they've had a blood transfusion with Christ. That something of these group of radicals that absolutely have this huge amount of love and adoration for Christ are so like Jesus that they've almost like had a blood transfusion with him. And these verses are talking about that. They're saying that you need to try and give up your life so much so that you're just living for the glory of the Lord, that you know the power and the authority that you stand in. That actually this persecution, the consequences that could come when you start moving in the Lord's power, that doesn't matter because you stand in his authority. I'm going to try and give an analogy for this to help relay it and to help make it really understandable. So I was driving home from Margate the other day. And as I was driving from Margate, in front of me was the most beautiful sunset. There was like this golden sun in the sky, a piercing blue sky, and it was kind of one of those sunsets where there were little clouds coming over from the sun, and these clouds were laced with little bits of gold. And it was just beautiful. But behind me was this huge black smouldering like group of clouds, and they were all encompassing, like it was just completely around me. And you could see the rain, you know when you can see rain in the distance of clouds, and you could tell that everybody was thinking the same thing, which was, I don't want to be caught up in that. Because people started driving very fiercely towards that beautiful sunset to escape what was coming behind them. And it was this sense of impending doom, you know, like the day after tomorrow was like literally catching up with us. And I was praying on the way home, and I really felt the Lord say this about this image. And he said really clearly to me, the sun will still shine. The sun will still shine. And what I think that means is Jesus is still in heaven. Jesus is always in heaven. Jesus is never going to leave there again, or he will return to us. But what I'm saying is he reigns in heaven. His sovereignty, his power, and his authority is there. It was there right at the beginning, when he was right at the beginning with the Word, and he will be there right at the end. And he's there now. And the sovereignty and the authority of the Lord was right there at the beginning. It was right there at the end. And even when Jesus was hanging on the cross, the power and authority of the Lord was still there. When Jesus descended from that beautiful throne down to earth as this completely helpless babe, it didn't change his authority or his power. The power of the Lord was still there. And you know, whatever huge black dark cloud comes and faces us, the sun still shines. It doesn't get rid of the sun. The sun is still there. And you know, I really felt the Lord just say to me, what do you live in? Do you live in the storm or do you live in the sun? Do you live under the Lord's authority and victory? Or do you live as if it's not there at all and you can't see it? And it's a real wake-up call about how we live as Christians. Because if we truly want to be a Lord's disciple, if we truly grasp his authority and we want to see the lame walk, and we want to see people healed, and we want to see demons flee, the authority is ours. It says in 2 Corinthians 4 that the same Spirit that was on Jesus Christ is in us. It actually describes it in this way, that it's like jars of clay that we carry with us, this jar of light of the Lord's death and resurrection with us. And so that same Spirit that Jesus Christ has, that authority and all that power, is really ready for us. But the Lord's asking this morning, do we live in the sun or do we live in the storm? And let me break that down a little bit more for us, because storm mentality looks like this. Oh my goodness, I need to go to the shops and buy bread. That generally is the first thought of any Brit, isn't it? Hurricane Katrina's coming. Go to Tesco's, fill up on bread and tea and coffee and milk. It means that we go out and we fix our eyes on what's earthly, and we purchase and we hoard and we gather. So storm mentality, are you looking to the world and grabbing the stuff that you need from the world to make yourself safe? One thing of storm mentality. Second thing of storm mentality, are you always on the back foot just trying to keep up with life? Are you constantly feeling that you're just putting the sandbags out, waiting for the next trauma? Are you feeling that you're trying to patch up the holes in your roof so that the rain can't get in? Are you always, your prayers, are they your prayers just full of, Lord, help me with this. Help me with this. I need you to do this for me, Lord. I need this, Lord. And the third thing about storm life is that you have a survivor mentality. That maybe one thing hits you and you go, thank goodness I'm just through from that. And whatever conversation you have, it's dripped with, oh, you know, it's been a really tough week. My week's been like this. I've just got through that. Or it's, I just can't wait until this finishes or this happens. I know I'm going to be okay once we get to that point. Just have a moment and think, am I living in storm mentality? Have I forgotten that the sun is still there? Because living in the sun is recognizing that we live in the absolute authority of Jesus Christ. That the Spirit of the Lord is with us, that we carry it with us. And we're not survivors. It doesn't ever say that in the Bible about us. It actually describes us as kings and princes. It describes us as being a royal priesthood. It describes that we have such authority that darkness cannot overcome the light that we have. So do we walk out in utter victory, knowing that storm is merely temporary? That storm's going to pass over because the sun still shines. Do we know, Lord, what's a mountain because you can move it, God? Do we know, Lord, there's a demon, but I know I can cast it away in your strength? Lord, there's healing, and I know you can heal, Lord. And do we stand in that authority? In 2 Corinthians 4, right at the end, it says this: therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles, the little storms of life, are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not what is seen, but what is unseen. Seeing what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. The unseen sun is in the storm is absolutely eternal. It will always be there. It will always still shine. So what is our mentality? Is our mentality one of absolute victory and authority with Christ? Because if so, we need to start living like that and moving in the authority that he's got for us. I'm going to give a quick, just looking at the time, I'll be very quick. I work at Kingdom Preschool, and to be honest, since we've got back in January, it's been, Sophie and Jazz know, it has been like the storm, hasn't it, girls? Yeah? And every morning it's kind of like, Lord, just help us today. We're short-staffed. We have kids bursting from every orifice, it seems, of the building. The Lord has given us loads of children, which is great, but at the same time, we're all just rushed off our feet. There's about 68 hours of time that our staff body is covering between us. And every day, I feel like a survivor. I feel like I'm running around the building, patching up the roof, putting out the sandbags, just doing our best to try and survive and fight. And you know what? The Lord gave me this picture, and he was just like, Beth, you stand in my authority. You moron. Like the Lord wouldn't say it to me, but that's what I feel like I should add. You stand in my authority. The sun still shines. So get yourself in a place where the sun is shining on you. And you know what? I just had to move. And I look at that place now and I think, do you know what? We have so many children, but the truth is all those children are hearing about the Lord. Those children are going to be growing up as children of his kingdom. That is victory mentality. And do you know what? That storm's going to pass. The rain can't touch us. The winds can't touch us. They might cause momentary destruction, but so what? Because my Lord reigns. The sun is still in the sky. So church, we need to have a victory mentality. And at Burn, thanks, Chris, for bringing a word from Burn. But at Burn, a lady got up and she read Isaiah 61, and this was a huge turning point for me. This is what the Lord wants to do this year. And I pray that just as much it is for me, it is for you, because it starts like this. It says, the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me. And you know what? I want you to know this morning that the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon you. That beautiful, all-powerful, all-knowing Jesus in the heavenly realms has sent his Spirit, and it is on you. And wherever you tread, it is on you. You don't have to ask for it in the morning. You don't have to feebly worry about that day, because the Spirit of the Lord is on you. And if persecution comes your way, if people start arguing around you because you start moving in the Spirit of God, so what? Because the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on you. Because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and to release darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance for our Lord, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow in them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair, and they will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. Strangers will shepherd your flocks, foreigners will work your vineyards, and you will be called priests of the Lord. You will be named ministers of our God, and you will feed the wealth of our nations, and in their riches you will boast. But do you know what? This is immense, and it promises immensely huge glories and victories. But we need to work out this morning whether we're living in the storm. Because if we're living in the storm, then unfortunately we are the poor. We are the brokenhearted. We are the captives. We are living in darkness. We are mourning. we have ashes. We have a spirit of despair. And if that's us this morning, we need to recognize that the sun is still in the sky. So that you know that the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon you. And he has anointed you to not live in the storm, but to live in the sun. So that you can proclaim good news to the poor. So you bind up those broken hearts around you. And you release people from darkness. And instead of ashes, you give people a crown of beauty. Instead of mourning, you give people a garment of praise. And you will be rebuilding ancient ruins. And so, this morning, this might seem a bit strange and a bit odd. But I'm going to ask Phoebe if it's okay, Phoebe. If Phoebe can just come up and just play something in the background. Maybe the rest of the team want to join her. And whilst they sing a song, what I would really like to do, if this is okay with Marcus and leadership team, and I'm sure they'll make it clear to me if it's not okay, I really want to anoint people. Because I believe that people this morning need to make something practical and something physical in saying, I know that the Spirit of the Lord is on me. I know I'm anointed to do the work of the Lord. And I know that I stand in the authority of Jesus Christ and not in the storm. I know that there's a sun in the sky and that whatever's coming against me is just temporary because actually the Lord reigns. So I'm going to ask that as we sing this final song, if you want to make that declaration this morning, if you feel like a survivor rather than a victorious king for our God, then I want you just to come forward. I'm just going to anoint you. And all that consists of is me putting a bit of oil on your head. And I'm simply going to pray that the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord will be upon you. And I'm simply going to read those verses up over you, if that's okay. Thank you, guys.